The Amazon's humid air hung thick between towering trees where dappled sunlight barely reached the forest floor. Here, a hunter knelt beside a clay pot suspended over smouldering embers. He fed sections of a woody vine, Chondrodendron tomentosum, into the simmering water. The liquid reduced slowly, bubbling into a viscous tar-black brew that clung to the pot's sides. This was the beginning of curare. For hours he maintained the fire, stirring the concoction with a wooden paddle as steam carried a faint, bitter scent through the clearing. The paste thickened until it could coat a fingertip without dripping. He knew the potency was judged by its texture. Too thin and it would fail, too thick and it would not penetrate. This precise alchemy, perfected over generations, transformed a simple vine into a weapon that could halt a jaguar in mid-stride. Once cooled, the hunter scooped the dark paste into a small gourd, sealing it with leaves. The substance was inert until it entered the bloodstream, a secret the forest had yielded to his people. In his hands he held not just poison, but a key to survival, one that would soon baffle invaders from another world entirely. The hunter's fingers worked with practiced precision, smearing the glossy black paste along the dart's sharpened tip. He had carried the precious curare in a small gourd, and now he coated the weapon that would bring down his quarry. With a final check, he slid the dart into the long, polished tube of his blowgun, its surface worn smooth from years of use. He moved without a sound, his bare feet finding purchase on the damp forest floor. Above the canopy was a tangled mosaic of green, alive with the chatter of monkeys. His eyes scanned the shadows, tracking the movement of a woolly monkey as it leapt between branches. He raised the blowgun to his lips, the hollow tube an extension of his own focused breath. A sharp, controlled exhalation sent the dart whistling upward. It struck the monkey's flank. The animal did not cry out, but its grip faltered. It tumbled through the leaves, landing softly on the moss below. The hunter approached. The creature's eyes were wide, its chest still rising and falling, but its limbs lay utterly limp, paralyzed by the toxin already coursing through its bloodstream. The same blowguns that hunters used in the deep forest now turned toward the river. In the 1540s, Spanish conquistadors under Francisco de Orellana pushed their wooden vessels through the murky Amazon currents. From the shadowed banks, they watched tribesmen raise long, hollow tubes to their lips. A sharp puff of air sent a dart whispering through the leaves. A monkey high in the canopy suddenly stiffened. It tumbled from its branch, landing with a soft thud on the forest floor. The Spaniards, peering from their boats, noted the bizarre scene in their leather-bound journals. The animal's eyes darted wildly, its chest still rising and falling, yet its limbs lay utterly still, as if carved from wood. The conquistadors recorded a poison that killed without pain or loss of sense. A creature struck by these darts remained fully awake, trapped inside a body that would not obey. The mind was clear, but the command to breathe would soon fail, the chest muscles seizing into final, silent paralysis. They had witnessed the terrifying precision of curare. The conquistadors' journals described animals collapsing, but the reality struck closer to home when a Spanish soldier fell during a skirmish along the riverbank. An arrow, its tip smeared with the same black paste, had pierced his leather armor. His comrades dragged him from the brush, his body heavy and unresponsive, though his eyes tracked their movements with frantic clarity. They laid him on the ground within their makeshift camp. He could not lift a hand to point to the wound, nor could he cry out. His jaw hung slack, his breath reduced to shallow, desperate gasps. The soldiers watched, helpless, as the paralysis tightened its grip, climbing from his limbs to the core muscles of his torso and chest. His diaphragm and intercostal muscles, the very machinery of breathing, seized and failed. He remained fully conscious, aware of the fading light and the faces of his friends, as his lungs starved for air. The suffocation was silent and absolute, a death not from blood loss, but from a complete chemical stillness imposed upon his body. The conquistadors' chilling accounts of silent, conscious death had travelled across the Atlantic, igniting a fierce scientific curiosity. Decades later, European naturalists arrived on the Amazon's banks, determined to solve the mystery. Among them was Charles Marie de la Condamine, who in the 1740s carefully documented the local preparation of the dark paste, his notebook filling with sketches of the thick lianas and the hunter's precise methods. La Condamine's expedition gathered samples with meticulous care. They cut sections of the chondrodendron vine, wrapping the woody stems in damp cloth. They scraped the viscous black curare paste into small ceramic pots, sealing each lid with wax to prevent contamination or drying during the long voyage. Every specimen was labelled with its origin, a tangible piece of the jungle destined for European cabinets of curiosity. The journey home was a race against decay. The bundles of vine and sealed pots were stowed in the ship's hold, surviving storms and tropical heat. When they finally reached Paris, these strange artifacts caused a sensation. Academics peered at the paste, physicians sniffed its earthy scent, and all wondered how this simple substance could so completely command the body's muscles. The mysterious black paste that had crossed the Atlantic in specimen jars finally reached the clean, ordered world of the 19th century laboratory. Here, a French physiologist named Claude Bernard prepared a delicate experiment. He carefully injected a minute purified extract of curare into the lymph sac of a living frog, then placed the creature on a damp cloth and waited. The frog did not convulse or show signs of pain. Instead, a profound stillness descended. Its limbs went limp, its body flattening against the cloth, as if all tension had been siphoned away. Yet its heart continued to beat steadily beneath its skin, and its eyes remained open and alert. The animal was utterly conscious, trapped inside a body it could no longer command. Bernard meticulously probed the paralyzed frog with electrodes. He discovered that its nerves still fired electrical impulses and its muscles still twitched when stimulated directly. The breakdown occurred in the narrow gap between them. The curare molecules had lodged themselves at the muscle's receiving end, creating a physical barricade that stopped the body's own chemical commands from ever being heard. In those 19th century laboratories, the mystery of curare was finally unraveling. A scientist peered through his microscope at a frog's nerve muscle junction, where the chemical conversation of movement should occur. He applied a drop of purified curare extract. The electrical signal from the nerve still fired, racing toward the muscle fiber. But nothing happened. The muscle remained utterly still, as if the command had vanished into a void. The key was found at the microscopic gates on the muscle cell's surface, called nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. Curare molecules, shaped with a perfect sinister geometry, drifted into the synaptic gap. They did not destroy or attack. Instead, they lodged themselves into those receptor sites with a silent physical finality. They became inert plugs, occupying the space where the vital neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, was meant to dock and unlock contraction. With the receptors blocked, acetylcholine molecules released by the nerve endings simply washed against the sealed gates, powerless. No signal could pass. Every voluntary muscle, from the fingers to the diaphragm, fell into a profound, flaccid paralysis. The victim's mind remained tragically clear, trapped inside a body that had become an unresponsive prison until the chest muscles froze and breathing ceased. The same molecule that had once caused suffocation in the Amazon now entered a Montreal operating room in the 1940s. An anesthesiologist carefully injected a clear, purified solution called D-tubocurarin into a patient's intravenous line. The surgical team watched as the patient's tense abdominal muscles, which had resisted the surgeon's initial attempts, began to soften and relax completely. With the patient's belly now slack and pliant, the surgeon could make a much smaller incision. His scalpel moved with precision through the thin layers of skin and fat, no longer fighting against rigid muscle tissue. The anesthesiologist monitored the patient's breathing closely, manually operating a bellows to pump air into the lungs, keeping the patient alive while the curare derivative did its work. The operation proceeded with remarkable control, the surgeon able to access internal organs through the minimal opening. In that sterile, brightly lit room, the ancient poison had been transformed. Where it once guaranteed death by paralyzing the muscles of respiration, it now enabled life by providing surgical access that would have been impossible just years before. That first successful surgery in Montreal opened the floodgates. By the late 1940s, anesthesiologists across North America and Europe began incorporating purified curare, now called D-tubocurarin, into their protocols. They discovered that by carefully titrating the dose, they could induce a state of profound reversible muscle relaxation. This allowed surgeons to work on a still compliant patient without needing dangerously deep levels of general anesthesia. The patient's consciousness was safely maintained by other drugs, while their body was rendered completely passive. This new capability transformed thoracic surgery. Before curare, operating on a living lung was a frantic, perilous race against the patient's own breathing. Now, with the chest cavity open, the anesthesiologist could take control of respiration entirely with a mechanical ventilator. The surgeon had a motionless, airless field in which to meticulously remove a tumor or repair a damaged bronchus. What was once a jungle toxin that froze the diaphragm was now the very tool that made such delicate, life-saving procedures possible. The revolution spread to the heart and the brain. Cardiac surgeons could now stop and restart the heart for repair, confident the body would not convulse. Neurosurgeons could navigate the fragile landscape of the mind without the slightest tremor. From its origins in a clay pot over a jungle fire, curare had been refined into a precise instrument of modern medicine. It became the cornerstone of balanced anesthesia, saving countless lives by turning a mechanism of death into one of controlled, temporary stillness. That operating room in Montreal was just the beginning. Within a decade, purified D-tubocurarin had spread from a few pioneering hospitals to surgical theatres across Europe and North America. Anesthesiologists who once relied on deep, dangerous levels of ether or chloroform now had a precise tool. They could administer a small dose, watch the patient's muscles go slack, and maintain light, safe sedation. The jungle's ultimate weapon had become medicine's perfect scalpel. Chemists, no longer content with extracting the natural compound, began to engineer its molecular blueprint. They stripped away unnecessary parts of the curare molecule, creating synthetic derivatives like pancuronium and vecuronium. These new agents acted faster, lasted longer, and had fewer side effects. Production moved from jungle vines to sterile pharmaceutical plants, where precise chemical synthesis replaced the ancient art of boiling bark in clay pots over an open fire. Today, in a brightly lit pharmacy, a technician places a small glass vial into a surgical tray. Inside is a clear, colourless liquid, a synthetic neuromuscular blocker. Its molecular structure is a direct descendant of the alkaloids that once coated Amazonian darts. That ancient paste, brewed for a silent kill in the canopy, now enables a surgeon's hands to save a life on the table, its legacy sealed not in poison but in precision.